After becoming the new target of the pacifista, the soldiers had to flee the area to avoid danger. Outside, the Vice Admiral of the Navy also realized that Vegapunk had overridden his orders, which was why there was such chaos. The robot army was gaining the upper hand, making the group above happy. More importantly, Frankie didn't understand why they were rushing straight down like this. The old man explained that the clouds had adhesive properties, and his tires were made of clouds, so he wasn't afraid of falling. He asked Atlas to quickly find Bonney so they could rescue her, as she must be very scared and lonely right now. Sanji heard this and also went out to search, but below he only heard loud explosions and had no idea where Bonney was. At this moment, he knew he had to focus on searching through his sensing ability, which worked like a radar specifically for finding the girls he cared about. Very quickly, an image of Bonney sitting in a corner appeared. Sanji immediately reported the location to Vegapunk to change direction. Frankie didn't quite believe it and had to ask if he was sure, because he didn't see anything. The young man also scolded him, saying his radar had never been wrong. Dr. Vegapunk also trusted him, but the speed was too slow. Sanji was afraid that girl would be in trouble, so he quickly ran ahead using his skills. On this side, Bonney felt relieved seeing the pacifista return to their side again. Before she could smile for long, she was attacked by Navy Vice Admiral Pomsky. He had been looking for her because she dared to turn his men into children and old people. The soldiers came one after another, forcing Bonney to shoot. She dodged flexibly and then used her devil fruit ability, making the three men imagine their bodies reduced to dry skeletons. Thanks to this, she managed to hold back the Vice Admiral for a bit. But when she tried to run away, she was targeted by another pacifista. It turned out this old woman had the ability to control anything she rode on. The devil fruit user Nori Navy Vice Admiral Bluegrass. She wondered if killing Bonney would make the curse placed on her disappear. Being targeted, Bonney saw an image of her father and gave up. The old woman showed no mercy and immediately shot. Fortunately, Sanji was there to help his friend dodge to the side. After hearing about Kuma being her little father, the young man was quite sympathetic, but still advised her to accept the truth that it was no longer him. As soon as he finished speaking, Pomsky chased after him and attacked in his beast form. At this moment, a few other pacifista arrived to help the pair under orders from Vegapunk. Thanks to this, everyone was able to leave safely. The two were immediately called onto the vehicle to return to the top, as it was too dangerous down here. At the same time, Nami's group was trying to transport Robin as gently as possible. They were also afraid of hurting their friend, so they had to apologize beforehand and ask her to endure a little longer. Just as they were about to set off, Stussy demanded to stay because she still had work to do. Looking into her eyes, Edison also agreed and urged the others to leave quickly. Usopp looked worried and asked again to be sure if it was okay. Edison said it was her wish, so not to worry. Nami also smiled and said goodbye, promising to meet again later. Out at sea at this moment, Saint Saturn knew he could no longer rely on the Navy, so he stood up. At the same time, Zoro was still being held back by Lucci. His fighting skills were no match for our swordsman, but his speed was much greater, constantly hiding and launching surprise attacks. He also advised Zoro to give up because resistance was useless. Hearing this, he was quite annoyed because this guy always looked down on others. Above, the battle between Luffy and Admiral Kizaru was still very intense, with neither side gaining a significant advantage. The main character dodged every light beam shot at him while laughing gleefully. His opponent felt that fighting like this was going nowhere. He said they had their reasons, but Luffy didn't care. The Leopard Man also declared that all of them would be destroyed. Zoro blocked the malicious attacks aimed at him and told him to keep running his mouth. While the four powerful warriors were concentrating, tremors began to occur at sea. The pressure created by Saint Saturn was immediately recognized by Admiral Kizaru and Luffy. Chopper, who was running with everyone inside, suddenly felt uneasy. Jinbei, who was transporting luggage, also sensed that something bad was happening at sea. Dark clouds kept coming, and the Marines on the ship had no idea what was happening. The sky was bright, but in the next second, it was swallowed by darkness. This scene made the Vice Admiral sweat because he couldn't believe it. Immediately after, a voice ordered all pacifistas to stop. This order was effective immediately, leaving Sanji's group confused. Atlas tried to give new orders for the pacifistas to protect them, but it was ineffective. In her mind, she knew that the only people with higher authority than her were the five elders. In the next second, A large explosion occurred, leaving the nearby Marines confused. A five-pointed star also slowly appeared on the ground. Power radiated from it everywhere, making everyone worried, and the sky also changed because of it. Sanji asked Dr. Vegapunk to move higher to observe what was happening. Outside, the Marine Vice Admiral ordered all soldiers on the island to retreat. Because Lord Saturn, one of the 5 elders, would be coming to Egghead Island, no one below the rank of lieutenant commander was allowed to see him. This news frightened those nearby. The large explosion continued, helping Dr. Vegapunk realize that the situation was gradually getting worse as one of the 5 elders had come here. Frankie, who knew nothing, also asked and was answered. They are the people with the highest power in the world. Bonney's face also clearly showed fear. At this moment, something black appeared inside the star-shaped circle. Legs slowly grew out, along with red eyes. Because he was high up, Sanji witnessed the entire transformation. The disgusting creature then transformed into a human form resembling a demon from hell. Saint Saturn possessed a giant body and a terrifying appearance, to the point that a marine who didn't know thought it was a monster. As a result, he was immediately defeated by the elder with just a look. His comrades saw this and had to quickly leave. The old man sighed that it had been a long time since he stood on the ground like this. He was also considered the god at the forefront of science and defense. One of the 5 elders. The people with the highest power in the world government. Bonney also didn't know what that monster was. Above, Kizaru had also arrived and shot directly at the vehicle. Sanji quickly warned Dr. Vegapunk to dodge to the side, but they fell freely downwards. Fortunately, Kizaru couldn't attack further because Luffy had caught up. He seemed to be close to his limit in this form, which is why he was so slow. The opponent also knew this, so there was no need to rush. Frankie asked the main character to do something, so he also tried. The young man inflated an arm, but before he could do anything, he was grazed by the opponent's shot, causing his body to spin. But thanks to this, Luffy came up with an idea to defeat the opponent. Waiting for Kizaru to attack again, the main character quickly strengthened his haki in his hand and punched. At first, it missed, but Luffy used his elastic body to make the punch bounce back. That move was so unexpected that Kizaru couldn't dodge. As a result, he was punched and his head was deformed. Below, Saint Saturn witnessed everything and called Luffy Nika. After knocking away the Marine Admiral, he also returned to his original form because he had reached his limit. As for the group in the vehicle, they suffered the same fate. Falling from a height, everyone was thrown far away. But fortunately, no one was seriously injured. Sanji worried about Bonney and Atlas, asking if they were okay. When the new enemy approached, hearing the noise, Bonney also woke up and saw this appearance. Dr. Vegapunk also tried to speak, and the other party replied, thinking he was dead. Bonney's eyes at this moment showed an indescribable fear, along with hatred for this person, so she immediately got up. She didn't say anything and immediately ran over with the intention of attacking. Picking up the sword, and just like that, Bonney jumped in and stabbed while the other party calmly stood and watched. Just like that, the little one successfully made Saturn bleed. The navy at this time was running in disarray from where Saint Saturn had set foot. Only vice admirals or rear admirals could stay to assist. Others were forbidden to look upon his holy countenance. Saint Saturn, who stood above all, unexpectedly took action directly like this. As for Bonney, after successfully stabbing the enemy, she was advised by Dr. Vegapunk to stay away from that guy. The navy, seeing one of the world's most powerful figures injured, was also angry, and everyone was ready to attack, making the situation worse. Bonney cursed the opponent and as a result was punished. He used his eyes to shoot some kind of energy beam that severely injured her and sent her flying far away. Sanji saw this scene and immediately rushed in, but still couldn't do anything. Their opponent was strong beyond imagination. Frankie saw his teammate taken down in an instant and didn't act rashly. As soon as he pulled the sword out of the person, all the wounds were healed. This is the ability of one of the world's top 5 people. The navy then rushed in wanting to arrest Dr. Vegapunk and the others. However, Saint Saturn ordered them to stop, because they couldn't escape anymore. So there was no need to rush. He wanted to play around for a while longer because he had come here himself anyway. Admiral Kizaru was also scolded for not being like him at all. He couldn't justify himself. His whole body was trembling after the attack from Luffy. Thinking he wouldn't be able to move for a while, looking at the main character, He was also exhausted and couldn't move. Saint Saturn was about to stab with his foot to see what would happen. But Frankie was faster and punched the captain, flying far away. The opponent saw this and judged them to be wise pirates who knew how to cooperate. The robot friend curiously asked, "Even someone at the top of the world wants our captain's head?" This proved that Luffy is very special. The appearance of the main character and Bonney in this battle was not expected. If they could escape the island after being completely surrounded by the navy. He also wanted to witness that. However, things would become troublesome if that happened. And Dr. Vegapunk, who had betrayed the world government. He is a great danger if he gains freedom. Saint Saturn had to thank him for his contributions to the navy so far. So he would grant a special privilege. He asked him to name the names in order from least painful to most painful to eliminate each person. He wanted Dr. Vegapunk to suffer and die in regret for daring to betray the world government. Luffy was the first victim to suffer damage. Bonney then woke up and tried to struggle but was increasingly choked. Saint Saturn wondered why humans always want to do forbidden things. Sanji couldn't stand it and rushed forward again. But at this moment, all of their actions were restrained. No one could move, let alone save someone. Everyone was shocked by the overwhelming power of one of the most powerful people. Although the girl suffered a lot of damage, she still bravely cursed the person who killed her father. Mentioning Kuma, this guy called him a high-class slave, and a descendant of a tribe that had committed serious crimes against the world. The only survivor of the extinct pirate race. The past memories came back to Bonney. Kuma had wanted to become a hero who could save the oppressed and suffering. Like Nika, the warrior of liberation. Joyful dances appeared. The navy had prepared to give her the death sentence. Dr. Vegapunk tried to beg because she was still just a child. Bonney was very tired at this time, trying to remember the last beautiful images. She wondered if the warrior of liberation would come to save her. Going back 47 years ago to the Sorbet Kingdom. On that day a large boy was born in a small village. His father and mother also named their son Kuma. And asked the doctor to keep their bloodline a secret. He was a good person and promised not to tell anyone. So don't worry. Time passed peacefully for the whole family. About 4 years later, Kuma had grown a bit. But on that day, something terrible happened. The kind doctor rushed to inform Clap and his wife, advising them to leave immediately because government agents had found them. Upon hearing this, the couple's faces instantly changed color. But they couldn't do anything. Government henchmen had arrived and threatened them. They demanded that everyone follow them obediently if they didn't want to die right there. As a result, there was a struggle. But the victory still belonged to the other group. Clap tried to plead for his wife and child because they were innocent. Only he possessed the buccaneer bloodline. However, no matter how much he begged, it was useless. The whole family was escorted to a detention center. Kuma was still young and didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. He was still protected by his parents, waiting for the day of judgment. As a result, all three were separated in the Holy Land. His mother left advice for her son to live his own life. And no matter how difficult it was, he should try to overcome it. His father smiled and said that their family would meet again. So he should be strong. Son. From then on, Kuma's life as a slave began. Every day, the boy had to follow unreasonable orders from his master. Because he was a buccaneer slave, Kuma himself was considered rare. But he was still tortured and beaten mercilessly. The boy endured, waiting for the day he would be reunited with his parents. Time passed, and for the slaves, it was nothing short of hell. One day, his father was brought here. So the two of them met. Seeing the wounds on his father's body, Kuma was extremely worried. Mr. Clapp acted as if he was fine and praised his son for growing up so much. When asked about the current situation, the boy lied. He said that his master was very kind, so his father didn't need to worry. Their circumstances forced a boy who was only a few years old to mature quickly, both in spirit and body, to overcome all the pain. When his mother was mentioned, his father sadly sat down and told the truth, that his mother was no longer in this world. He himself thought this was the best way to free his wife. Kuma cried out in pain after hearing this. He had endured until today just to see his mother, but she was gone. The two of them couldn't hold back their tears but still had to try to overcome it. Kuma was told to continue living because one day the warrior of liberation would come. And he would save him from this hell. The boy, however, thought it would be better if he died. Clapp told him about the sun god Nika. the name of the legendary warrior associated with a smile on his face. In the legacy of the Buccaneers, it has been recorded for generations that one day the sun god will come and take them out to a place of warm sunlight and free seas. He also danced the dance of Nika, the warrior who always smiled, and he would make everyone smile along with his cheerful rhythm. Kuma looked at him and was a little happier. But immediately after, the boy had to face the pain of losing his last relative. A celestial dragon, seeing that the slaves were too noisy, fired a gun and took the life of his father. A few years later, those in power landed on an island. They wanted to play a game of hunting the local people. This place was not connected to the world government, so it was chosen, and that was God Valley about 38 years ago. This place was known as the Valley of God and also possessed rich resources. Those in power decided to take over this place. The king here could not accept it and cursed them as crazy for using innocent people's lives for entertainment. As soon as he finished speaking, he was slashed by Saint Garling, who was the top candidate in the hunt and had to start with minus 10,000 points. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, Kuma bent the iron cage to free himself. However, immediately after, news of an escaped slave was reported. The other slaves were forced to go find and bring Kuma back. Not wanting to die here, the poor boy continued to run far away. The pain of losing his parents surged, making Kuma cry non-stop. However, at this time, the other slaves arrived with weapons. They were afraid of being implicated, so they beat the child to bring him back. Kuma didn't want to return to that hell anymore and struggled to get up. As a result, he was beaten unconscious and dragged back. From above, two other children at this time laughed loudly and stopped the group of people. They were also slaves like Kuma and wanted to be free. After hearing that this boy possessed the blood of giants, Ivankov and Ginny were very interested. Despite suffering a lot, these two people still maintained a cheerful attitude, calling the others pathetic because they didn't dare to save themselves. Being called a kid, Ginny bit a piece of meat and shouted, asking if they wanted to live or die. Everyone replied that they wanted to live, so they were invited to join the team. These two people wanted to create a miracle. And if they follow, we have a great plan here. The hunt for humans by the authorities has begun, with innocent islanders, slaves, and criminals all becoming prey. Dangerous individuals like Kuma are highly valued. If he can be taken down, 10,000 points will be awarded. The prize for the winner is incredibly wonderful. Devil fruits considered to be the strongest. Saint Garling is also interested in this game, and the event's host, one of the 5 most powerful individuals in the world, is observing from above. The nightmare begins with many falling, and the continuous sound of gunfire distracts Kuma. Ivankov and Ginny remind him to stick to the plan and not worry about anything. To find a way to survive, the boy obediently listens. In another development at Marine headquarters, after receiving information that something was about to happen at God Valley, the fleet admiral at that time called his friend Garp, asking him to quickly go there and resolve it. He didn't explain the reason, which confused the vice admiral. Initially, Garp intended to refuse, but seeing how much he was begged, he reconsidered. Additionally, there was other important information. Roger was also participating in this event. Hearing that his sworn enemy had arrived, Garp immediately jumped up and set sail. At the same time, the notorious Rocks pirates had also begun heading towards God Valley, and other crews in the New World, seeing this, followed suit, thinking it was a major event in the pirate world. Returning to Kuma's current situation, many people have been killed in front of him. Because of his large body, the boy also became a target. Nearing the sea, Ivankov showed everyone the cruelty of the authorities. Outside the coast, a large number of marine ships were surrounding them, making it certain that no one could leave safely. And this entire island would be erased from history for going against the will of the celestial dragons. This game had only one outcome from the start. Prey like them would surely be killed within 3 weeks. It's unbelievable that everyone here is living in hell. Some still mistakenly believe that if they can survive the allotted time, they will be spared. Ivankov stated that no one had ever survived in previous competitions. The fact that those people gave them hope of survival was just for entertainment. They wanted people like them to try to escape so the hunt would become more interesting. Therefore, no one should dream of surviving in this death game. If they want to escape this situation, they must fight against the authorities. As of now, Saint Garling has earned over 100,000 points, and he is targeting high-value prey. Fortunately, KUMA'S group is not among them, and thanks to a fishman in the team, they were able to remove their handcuffs. Ivankov praised his friend's talent, making him overjoyed as he had never been praised like that before. Ginny is trying to contact the outside world. She has leaked information to the pirates, but there has been no action yet. With her talent, Ginny plays an important role in the escape. She is trying to manipulate information, using the reward of super rare devil fruits to lure pirates, among which there is one that allows the user to transform into a mythical azure dragon, and the other allows one to teleport to a distant island, if they get it. Slaves like them will be able to escape safely. The reward is in the central area, which means they will have to risk going back there to find it. Ginny is a professional thief, eavesdropper, and information broadcaster, asserting that pirates will soon come here and cause chaos. 2 weeks prior, she had already leaked the information outside, by taking advantage of the battle between the celestial dragons and the pirates. They will take the treasure and escape. However, to execute the plan perfectly, someone needs to distract the celestial dragons, which also means someone will have to sacrifice themselves so that others can continue to live. Hearing this, Kuma didn't hesitate to raise his hand. He said he had a strong body, so he would probably last longer than everyone else. And he didn't want to see anyone fall again, so he would try his best. Ivankov and Ginny were touched and promised they would definitely not let him die. And they would all leave this living hell together. Outside on the beach, the wind began to blow strongly. A few Navy ships had been shot down by the powerful Rocks pirates. And not only them, but many other notorious pirate crews were also arriving. The battle at sea thus erupted. But the pirates clearly showed their overwhelming power. Rocks also ordered his crew to land on the island and steal the treasure. Formidable and powerful figures stepped out one after another. The first pair was Whitebeard and Stussy, with Queen Gloriosa standing beside them. Along with them were Big Mom and Kaido. Golden Lion Shiki demanded that whoever stole the treasure would own it. John was also very interested in the treasures on the island. All of them were recognized legends in the pirate world. Whitebeard feared that Rocks would forget the purpose of coming here, so he asked everyone to check the treasure first. Golden Lion Shiki was not very pleased because he always spoke like a leader. Kaido wanted to fight Roger but was advised against it by Big Mom. News of the powerful pirates present at God Valley destroying the hunt angered the celestial dragons. The navy was being attacked from all directions without being able to retaliate. For some reason, news of this island had spread. And at this moment, Roger's pirate crew had also arrived to join the fun. This would be the fiercest battle to date, with powerful crew members arriving one after another. From above, Saint Garling saw the chaos and immediately ordered his soldiers to retreat to protect the celestial dragons. He and 2 other holy knights would confront the other pirates. The explosion of the 2 pirate crews turned the entire island into a sea of fire. Ivankov urged Kuma to quickly get the reward before one of them stole it. Outside at sea, good news had arrived for the navy as reinforcements had arrived. The person who came was Garp and his brothers. Their only target was Roger's pirate crew. Inside, the 2 children had successfully taken the rare devil fruits. Finding a warehouse, they were about to eat them when Big Mom suddenly rushed over. Ivankov held the legendary devil fruit in his hand, but before he could do anything, it was stolen. Kuma saw this situation and was scared. Urged by his friend to run away, Ivankov risked his life to hold them off so that everyone would have a chance to live. The boy was told to eat it and survive. Even if it was just one of them, it was more than enough. Kuma obediently swallowed the devil fruit but didn't know how to use its power. As he ran, he was attacked by Saturn. He had noticed Kuma because he possessed Buccaneer blood. He declared that Kuma's fate was to be a slave and die. That had been decided by the flow of history. Despite the pain, Kuma was not despairing, asking him if he was an important person. It was strange how some people were born important, and others were labeled as slaves from birth. The boy wished to possess a power like Nika's, so he could save the miserable people in this place. The battle at God Valley continued for many days, but in the end, it was erased from history. The scene shifts to some time later. Somehow Kuma's group escaped the deadly island. The story of hero Garp was being widely discussed, but no one knew about the escaped slaves like them. In the end, this trio still couldn't know what happened to the battle on the island. In all that chaos, Kuma, with his devil fruit power, saved over 500 lives. The other 2 brothers were extremely proud of that, Everyone thanked the boy with tears of happiness. And Kuma's hands were considered the hands of liberation. These words reminded the boy of his father's advice: survive and endure. And one day the warrior of liberation will come. Having achieved the freedom he longed for, Ivankov had to bid farewell to his 2 younger siblings to set sail on his own. And they would never forget what had happened. As for Ginny, she chose to stay with Kuma to think about what to do with her life. She was 4 years older than Kuma, so she acted like an older sister, wanting to raise Kuma properly. However, because her body was too small, she couldn't do heavy work, so her younger brother had to help her by collecting firewood for Ginny. They would use it to sell for money, so they wouldn't have to steal anymore. That day, on their way home, they were stopped by some children. After learning that Kuma was only 9 years old, they tried to bully him. Seeing this, Ginny didn't say much and rushed in to teach them a lesson. Kuma, whose head was swollen from being beaten, stood up and removed the pain with his power. From then on, the children there started to become closer to the 2 of them. They almost followed them every day to help. With money, the couple bought a lot of food. Kuma always gave the best part to his older sister. Although small, Ginny could eat twice as much as Kuma, so she would have to work more. That night, they told each other about becoming slaves at the age of 4. Seeing his older sister laughing, Kuma thought it was better not to bring this up again. Before that, they had never imagined being able to eat their fill like today. Tears began to fall, even though they were free. Perhaps from now on, they would never forget the days they lived in hell. Kuma also recalled losing his parents, and then others falling one by one. Now, Ginny was his only relative, and when he saw her cry, Kuma cried too. The time they spent together was full of happy days. So seeing his friend cry, he couldn't hold back his tears. The scene shifts to 8 years after the events in God Valley. Ginny and Kuma have now grown much more, still running their family church while helping the local people in many ways. With his ability, all the pain that the elderly in the village were suffering was drawn out. And they simply thought it was a miracle that Kuma brought. Because he always helped others like this, he was very much loved. And some people had even known Kuma's parents before. After the whole family disappeared, she was really worried, but seeing the child from that year return and live like this now, she felt much more at ease. It seems the secret about the bloodline in his body is still hidden. And everyone believes that the young man's parents must be very proud. When their son has become such a wonderful pastor, an old man asked if Kuma could perform miracles on a normal day. And upon hearing this, Ginny immediately got angry and flatly refused, saying that healing could only take place on Sundays. You old folks don't even pay. And you're still demanding. She scolded them a lot. But no one looked sad because they were used to this personality. The girl is now nicknamed Fierce Ginny, and though her mouth is sharp, she is extremely beautiful. All the boys in the village come to try and pursue her. But they see that she already has Kuma, so surely no one will be able to win her over. Hearing this, Ginny blushed and further affirmed her feelings for the younger boy. The old folks looked triumphant, saying that they had lived to this age, so of course they would understand. They also supported the feelings of the 2. But in the end, Ginny chased them away. Kuma is very compassionate and lets the old folks sit and play for as long as they want. By the afternoon, everyone wanted to pay the 2. But they had no money. Here they had to pay almost all of their earnings to the celestial dragons. The newly crowned king was also greedy, so life became even more difficult. King Bekori was known for being cold and heartless. If someone was sick and couldn't pay tribute, they would be thrown into prison, and the only outcome then was death. This person served under the celestial dragons, so the elderly here could hardly live in peace. If they didn't want to be arrested, they had to keep their bodies healthy to work. So every time Kuma healed them, they were extremely grateful. He smiled and said this was what he should do. And he invited everyone to come next week. And he would continue to treat them as he did today. Everyone was overjoyed because this could prolong their lives a little. But few knew what Kuma had to endure to create miracles. His devil fruit could push other people's pain out. But that pain didn't disappear. Instead, it would have to be absorbed into the body of the kind pastor himself. For a long time Kuma had hidden this, enduring the pain himself every night. Every time this happened, Ginny had to sit outside. She couldn't help at all, so she was just as pained as the younger boy. This is also why they can only do this once a week to allow Kuma's body to recover in time. Bearing all the pain of others, the pastor's body showed many wounds. Despite this, Kuma still tried to endure so that his sister outside would worry less. Ginny cried streams outside. She could only tend to her brother's wounds. She wondered why Kuma could do this to his body every week. It was beyond a human's endurance. He smiled and said it was okay. Pain and suffering would not disappear on their own if no one accepted it. He himself was used to enduring. And the most important thing was that helping others made him feel happy. He also had to apologize to Ginny for making her worry, promising to try to train to be stronger so that pains like today would no longer be a concern. After recovering a bit, the young man invited his sister to eat. And at the mention of food, Ginny became overjoyed. Kuma suggested that if it was sunny tomorrow, they could go somewhere to play. And she immediately agreed, saying that grilling meat or catching fish was also a good idea. Time passed until Kuma was 22 years old. And the two siblings still lived together harmoniously and very happily. Ginny was 4 years older than Kuma and had reached marriageable age. Seeing a rainbow outside, she had an idea, so she asked Kuma to marry her, which shocked him greatly. Although he liked her very much, Kuma was afraid that the past would repeat itself. He carried the buccaneer bloodline, and if it were discovered again, his future wife and children would also be implicated. If he married Ginny, he would certainly be very happy. But no one could guarantee whether their future lives would encounter misfortune. Rejected, Ginny was very angry but could not say anything. Today's newspaper reported on the Revolutionary Army, led by Dragon, whom Kuma greatly admired. He had instigated protests in many countries to help civilians. And Kuma was sure that he was a true hero. And one day, he also wanted to go out to sea and contribute in the same way. To help others like the warrior of liberation, Nika. At this moment, some friends came to visit with gifts. These three people all liked Ginny very much. So whenever they caught a large haul of fish, they would bring it to curry favor. She was angry, so she threw the basin directly at Kuma's head, calling him an idiot because they had endured so much together. Yet he was still afraid of people encountering misfortune. After a while, a major event occurred in the land where they lived. The elderly people, whom the two of them had often helped, were now arrested by soldiers because they were no longer able to work. Just then, the kind young man arrived with the intention of saving everyone. The soldiers thought he was just a pastor, so they were not afraid. They even threatened that interfering with the work of the royal army was a capital offense. Seeing the elderly people crying for help, Kuma could not stand by. He did not want anyone to become a slave like him, so he actively attacked. With the power of the devil fruit, the young man easily knocked everyone away. Taking that opportunity, everyone ran towards Kuma for protection. The remaining soldiers had to face the anger of the pastor. He created a giant hand and threw it at them, and its pressure blew all the soldiers away. The next day, the current king received news that the policy of arresting people had been strongly opposed. Fearing that the entire kingdom would resist, he did not care and devised a plan to separate the dissenters from the kingdom. Gradually, people in other areas also viewed them as a threat. Thus, no one else opposed the arrest of people in the southern land where Kuma lived. After a while, Ginny's group was imprisoned. They were now considered outlaws. Originally, only Kuma was supposed to be arrested. But the others could not stand the soldiers' actions. So they intervened and were also arrested. However, everyone smiled because they were locked up together like this again. Kuma felt resentful that the southern region was considered a land of slaves. This country was becoming more corrupt than ever. The gap between the rich and the poor was too wide. Not to mention the extremely harsh discrimination. King Bekwari was a puppet of the celestial dragons, and the policies he enacted were all plans of the most powerful people in the world. Rebelling to save this country meant going against the world government. Suddenly, at this moment, the Revolutionary Army arrived to liberate everyone. They were incredibly strong and quickly captured the king. Surprisingly, the leader of this liberation army was Ivankov, along with the famous revolutionary dragon. The slave policy was thus abolished, making the people happy. News of Kuma causing a disturbance reached Dragon. His friend was sure that everyone would love Kuma when they saw him. Meeting his brother again after so many years, Ginny was overjoyed and also shocked when the person accompanying him was the famous hero. Both immediately invited him to join the Revolutionary Army. To change this world together in the way they were already doing. The owner of the liberating hands naturally agreed, followed by Ginny and other friends. In the following period, they split up into different countries, where people were oppressed by the government. To liberate everyone, the era of pirates also began from that moment. Like a great fire in response to the tragedy at Ohara, the Revolutionary Army, led by three extremely powerful individuals, created a notorious organization worldwide. Today, the commander discussed the current lack of funds for the Revolutionary Army to purchase weapons, as mercenaries. They would overthrow cruel kings and bring freedom. To achieve this, a large force is needed, so new recruits must be trained in weapon use and combat. Dragon wants the Revolutionary Army to cover the entire world, so that whenever people need them, they will appear to help. He used to be in the Navy, but he couldn't find any justice there. That's why Dragon wants to create true justice with warriors who want to liberate. One day, Kuma visited his hometown. The elders still gathered at the church. So they were very happy to see the kind pastor return. Their lives are now very peaceful after being liberated. Then, another 8 years passed, and Ginny was now a captain leading people in battle in a place far from Kuma. Today, she seemed very happy because she was about to meet her beloved again. However, an urgent message was then reported to Dragon, saying that the enemy had captured Ginny. This was a huge shock to Kuma, making him worried. At the Revolutionary Army's main base, ever since Ginny was captured, bad things kept happening. Today, they received news that the rebels in Tumi, in the southern sea region, were being overwhelmed and needed reinforcements. Ivankov refused, as there were currently many wounded people from other kingdoms on their ship. Hearing this, Kuma cast aside all his sadness from losing Ginny and volunteered to go reinforce the rebels. With his devil fruit ability, he could reach the location in an instant. Ivankov objected, fearing Kuma's mental state was unstable. However, just as he ran to stop his comrade, Kuma activated his teleportation ability on himself and flew away at the speed of sound. The scene shifts to the Southern Sea, where soldiers equipped with armor and weapons were overwhelming the rebels. The very next second, Kuma landed in the middle of the battle, filled with resentment towards those sent by the celestial dragons. Every time he remembered the image of that woman, he fell into despair. The day Ginny was captured, Dragon received news that a celestial dragon had taken an interest in her, which was why the government had captured her to be that man's wife. At present, Kuma was much stronger than before, no matter how hard the soldiers tried. They couldn't do anything to him. The young man activated his devil fruit ability, unleashing his ultimate move, Ursa Shock, blowing away all enemies. But the anger in his heart remained. Saving that woman from the celestial dragon was impossible. But at least Kuma had freed the people there from the brutal rule of the king. After 3 years of non-stop fighting, the Revolutionary Army immediately became heroes in their eyes, and the flag of liberation flew high. But no one could understand the pain Kuma was enduring. After resolving the situation, the young man called Dragon, saying he was very tired and needed to rest for a while. The scene shifts to 2 years later, from the time Ginny was captured and became the celestial dragon's wife. Today, for some unknown reason, she managed to escape and brought a child with her. This was the child Ginny had with that celestial dragon. After returning to her familiar home, Ginny immediately called her comrades. Hearing Kuma's voice, she tried to sound cheerful as before, saying she was back. Everyone was happy she was alive. But the very next second, Ginny revealed that she had an incurable illness. That's why she was discarded and returned like this. Although she really wanted to see everyone again, she probably couldn't anymore. This would be her final farewell to her comrades and Kuma. He heard this and also shed tears, thinking they would never see each other again. He asked where she was and said he would come immediately. But she stopped him, saying she was about to die anyway and didn't want her comrades to see her in this state. For people who had faced life and death together like Ivankov and Kuma, hearing Ginny's farewell felt like the sky was about to collapse. Although she knew their feelings, she still wished everyone wouldn't come. At the decisive moment, Kuma remembered there was only one place for Ginny to return to. That was the church where they grew up together. As he left, the woman asked Dragon and Ivankov to take care of their friend. Ginny uttered her last words, saying she would always love Kuma, then closed her eyes and passed away. Later, the young man returned to the old house and saw the elders still waiting there. Going inside, he saw Ginny, only a soulless body remaining. No matter how many times he called her name, she did not respond. Her body and face were covered in stones. Ginny had previously said that when exposed to sunlight, her skin would turn blue and she would be unable to move. This illness was the cause of the kind woman's untimely death. Old memories flooded back, making Kuma cry out in regret. Unable to bring happiness to that woman, Every promise the joyful words of Ginny kept appearing. And in his saddest moment, Bonney's cries awakened Kuma. Everyone said this was Ginny's daughter. A child who would live on in place of her mother's unfortunate life. Before that, with her last ounce of strength, Ginny had crossed the scorching sea to return to this place and entrust the baby to everyone. From that moment, Kuma also swore to protect Bonney for the rest of his life. And so, the unfortunate mother was carefully buried. Kuma became a father, but he didn't know how to raise a child. Fortunately, the elderly people there had a lot of experience. Every day they came to teach the big father how to feed Bonney milk. Everyone was even afraid that Kuma's giant body would crush his daughter. So they requested that Bonney be kept in an iron cage when sleeping for safety. The mischievous child was extremely fond of eating. Just like Ginny, everyone thought she would grow up to be a beautiful woman like her mother. Time continued to pass until now. The little one could crawl around on her own, and then stand on her own 2 feet and walk to her father. To everyone's excitement, hearing Bonney call him Papa, Kuma was extremely moved and hugged his small child, carefully raised by her kind father and the elderly people in the village. Bonney developed very quickly. During that time, Kuma often had to ask the villagers to help take care of her. He himself had to go fight for the Revolutionary Army to liberate the unfortunate lives out there. And his fighting power grew stronger and stronger. This was also the time when Sabo was accepted into the Revolutionary Army. Life seemed like it would be happy and joyful. But then the saddest thing happened. Bonney began to show signs of an incurable disease. Just like Ginny, that night, as soon as he completed his mission, Kuma returned to his daughter. The 2 father and daughter happily hugged each other. However, after realizing the child's terrible illness, the father had to close all the windows so that sunlight could not shine inside. The childhood friends who came to visit the 2 father and daughter that day were also curious to ask what Kuma was doing. And after seeing the blue stones on the cute girl's face, they understood and immediately ran to find a doctor to examine her. However, this disease is very rare and completely incurable. Although many doctors were consulted, there was only one result. They had never seen this symptom before. To save his daughter's life, Kuma decided to leave the Revolutionary Army to find a cure for Bonney. At least he wanted to be with her. And this request was approved by Dragon. He wanted them to live a life without regrets. And at the same time, the Revolutionary Army would go everywhere to inquire about the disease the girl was suffering from. The scene shifts to when Bonney was 5 years old. Occasionally, some children living in the village would tease her. Her personality was very similar to her deceased mother's. If she was provoked, she would immediately scare her friends away. Knowing that Bonney's weakness was sunlight, they also ran outside the door to provoke her. As a result, they were kicked directly in the face because as long as she was within the church's range, she would be fine. Kuma saw this and quickly ran to stop her, fearing his daughter would run outside. Fortunately, this child was very understanding and told her father not to worry. She would listen and not leave the church. She was also afraid of making her father sad, so she was praised for becoming a good girl, because she was often teased about the stones on her face. The daughter wondered if these stones were ugly. But this was a disease, so she had to bear it and couldn't do anything. Kuma praised them as beautiful gems to make her happy. He also lied that the children really wanted them, which was why they tried to tease her. In the evening, the father also asked where Bonney would like to travel if she could. The girl ran to get a book about islands in the sky, thought that the sky island was near the sun, so Nika might be there. He also wanted to meet that warrior once. Hearing this, Kuma immediately danced Nika's dance for his daughter to see. Bonney then learned it, and the 2 promised that when she turned 20, they would go find Nika together. At night, after the child fell asleep, Kuma talked to a good doctor. He knew about that disease and called it sapphire scale disease. When exposed to sunlight, moonlight, or other natural light, the stones on the body would spread. Even if completely avoiding light exposure, it would still develop. Their conversation accidentally woke Bonney. The doctor was also helpless and had no way to cure it. He also told Kuma directly to prepare himself, that his daughter only had 5 more years to live. As soon as she reached her 10th birthday, the disease would take her life. Hearing this, Kuma sadly turned back, not knowing what to do. Bonney mischievously ran out to scare him, saying she had heard it. Fortunately, his daughter only heard someone talking about her 10th birthday. She asked her father what happened, and Kuma had to lie, saying that the doctor said she would be cured by the age of 10. He cried because the time was too long. wanting Bonney to get well quickly so the two could travel everywhere. Hearing this, the girl was extremely excited because then she could travel with her father. Another year passed, and that night, nightmares returned to the Sorbet Kingdom. The elders in the village rushed to ask Kuma for help. They said that King Bekori was doing something similar to 16 years ago. He wanted to burn innocent people alive here. Hearing this, Kuma was extremely indignant.